Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we welcome Dr. Richard White from the Christ Community Church in Montreat.
Let's pray. Our Father, your word says that unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord watches the city, those who keep watch in vain. Lord, thank you for those who build and watch over our town, our mayor, these aldermen, our police force, our fire department, and all civil servants. Bless them, Lord, and through them bless our city, that their work not ever be in vain. Lord, we have work tonight, and we ask that you would enable us to seek the peace of the city in which you have placed us, even as your word says to do. Would you grant us peace? And Lord, in any difficult issues, things that perhaps would threaten to divide us and make us something less than neighbors, Lord, would you watch over us? And would you restrain in us anger and pride and personal agenda and all unwillingness to listen to others? Grant us, Lord, a sweet reasonableness in all our deliberations and a reasonableness that seeks the good of our neighbor. Lord, build among us and watch among us with your grace and wisdom, that our labors not be in vain, but that our city prosper. And this we ask humbly in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. White. Several announcements. Thank you. First one, I want to go ahead and thank Jamie and his crews for what they did a couple of weeks ago when we had the hurricane, edge of the hurricane come through and cause, a lot of the power outages. Unfortunately, they were longer than they probably would have been because Duke had sent a lot of their crews down to Florida. So at least most of the folks that I know that were out were very, very patient. And we got it back up. Of course, Jamie and them were ready to do a lot of work on some of the lines, but with those lines being hot, they're not going to go in there. But again, I thank you for what you did, and please thank the men. They did a good job. Upcoming events, the fire department on Sunday, October the 15th, has their fire department open house at 2 p.m. at the fire station on Montreat Road. On Saturday the 28th, there will be the mini Monster Mash at 2 p.m. at the Veterans Park for kids aged 2 to 10. There will be a costume contest. There will be games and refreshments. This is put on by the Recreation Department. On November the 4th, Saturday, from 10 a.m. to noon at Town Square, the Black Mountain Arbor Day will be observed, and the Urban Forester Commission will be there with snacks and good notes about trees and how to take care of them. This week, on Wednesday, there was the Walk to School, and that was well received by kids and the parents too. So it's just nice to see how many kids actually went ahead and took advantage of this. And I thank the Recreation Department for organizing it. Last meeting, I said I was going to form a blue ribbon committee to look at parking and congestion, and we met on Tuesday. There's eight of us, and had a very good meeting, discussed a lot of different things. Number one being trying to get a parking deck so that we could be able to really handle the increased traffic that we got downtown as far as parking goes. And but there's lots of other suggestions too. We'll be meeting again in a couple of weeks, and then hopefully we'll have an open meeting for the public to come, similar to what we did 12 years ago when we had the comprehensive plan, and we did that down at the clubhouse, to where we had just literally hundreds of people come in. And I think we need to resurrect that comprehensive plan. We've looked at it a couple of years ago, but I think we really need to dive back into it, and I think this would be a nice segue to do that. One thing I want to bring up on is as an announcement, and it's has to do with something that started on October the 1st, and that is we had an increase in our garbage contract. And so I want to address that because it is my fiduciary responsibility, as is the fiduciary responsibility of everyone on this board when they get sworn in, that if they see something that they think is not proper, is to bring it to the attention of the board members and the public. I'm passing out here. This is the minutes from the August 8th, 2016. It was a year ago. And I'm going to go ahead and go because I got to give a little bit of detail. This has to do with the contract, and I don't think the contract was properly signed because it wasn't endorsed by the board. But at that meeting, we were discussing a new contract for garbage. And so Matt had presented two proposals, one from Waste Pro, one from Waste Pro and the Republic. He recommended that we go with Waste Pro. Waste Pro was $15. Through a lot of lengthy discussions on the floor here between myself and the Waste Pro, they had four people of their executive group here. Fortunately, I was able to go ahead and reduce that price from $15.06 down, or 4 cents, down to $11.60, 46 cents. What that meant is that amount of money that was saved right then over 4 years by reducing that price would have been in the neighborhood of about $700,000. Alderman Harris realized what a good deal that was and immediately made a motion that we go ahead and we adopt the proposal at $4.46 as discussed for a 4-year term. And that's what the board did, and I think it was a great decision. In the fall, sometime around November, I went ahead and one of the aldermen asked me, have you seen the new contract for the Waste Pro? I said, no, I have not. And so I went to Matt, latter part of November, and asked him if he had it, and he didn't. He said he'll be getting it to me. Well, then holidays come, I forgot about it, so I didn't really follow it up till sometime in January. And so in January then, I go to him again, he still doesn't have it, he'll get it to me, so then finally sometime in February we get it. What I have a question on, and what I asked Matt to clarify, and I've not received that clarification, and then I spoke to the alderman again about it, we still haven't gotten the clarification, is that in year 2, 3, and 4, there is a substantial increase in the cost per household. I'm just going to throw these out. We have copies here if people want this. $12, jumping from $11.46 to $12.09 for this year, then another almost 50 cents for the following year, and another 50 cents. Basically means it's over $100,000 for 3 years. According to the proposal and the terms in the proposal, the only increases that could be added to that would have been because of the CPI, that is the Consumer Price Index, if that had gone up. And so, but how, I don't know, I just don't understand how we ended up with these increases in here and the justifications for them.
I can explain that sometime.
So, I'm speaking right now.
Yeah, I realize, but I can explain that when I have an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, and so so that's what I'm trying to figure out. I've asked Matt to tell me where these increases came from, and he said something about but never did get with specifics at any time. So I have brought this to the attention of the public. And that is and that is what I feel comfortable about. I don't feel comfortable about the fact that we went ahead and the manager signed a contract that increased spending by over $100,000 over a 3-year period, and this board did not go ahead. And to the best of my knowledge, and I've been to almost all the meetings, don't recall any particular authorizations to do that.
And when I have an opportunity to speak, I'll explain what that's about.
Yeah, we can do that when we get after new business, and we'll get through
That's
with
great.
the
Thank you, Mayor.
announcements.
Thank you,
and then
Mayor.
maybe
I
you'll
appreciate
have
that.
a chance to speak to that. The next thing I'm glad to talk about is our fire department, is our police department, and the work that they did by going down to Florida. And so I'm going to ask at this time for Chief Freeman to come up and talk a little bit about what they did and what this community raised as far as water and clothes and food and money to help these people out. Chief Freeman.
So after Hurricane Irma came through, I'd worked with a lot of people who actually moved back to the coast. So in essence, I was kind of thinking to myself on ways to try to help, those that I know. I was actually approached by Sergeant Guffey one morning, and she stated that, she said, is there something we can do? She said, I've talked to some people who are willing to donate some water and things of that nature. She said, can I have your approval to move forward and see if we can help these people? And I said, absolutely. I said, we'll just put something on Facebook. And so to back it up a little bit, I really attribute this to the town rather than the police department. The only thing we did was facilitate collecting the supplies, and then we were fortunate enough to be the ambassadors to go down and help these people. So it really is the town's effort. We were just the ones that helped facilitate it. So I want to make that clear off the bat. So as I went through, we started collecting. We figured we would collect enough to put in one of our rooms upstairs, but ultimately we started collecting so much that we had to move it downstairs into the basement area to accommodate everything we were getting. We ended up with probably close to 200 cases or more of water, and I couldn't tell you how many clothes. The only thing I can tell you is we took a 26-foot box truck, and it was almost filled from ceiling to floor to Florida. And then that was with the help of our citizens, our local businesses, and even businesses in McDowell County and Avery County and various places that donated items. And then we had our staff after hours who brought their families in, and we sat there and we broke up into ladies' clothes and men's clothes and children's clothes and toys and food and everything else. So once they got there, it would be much easier to disperse. We loaded the truck up last Friday. They went down and we were fortunate enough, we went to Immokalee, Florida. And I don't know how many of you know where that is, but it's a really low-lying area. They were really devastated. A lot of the families, a lot of the homes were totally destroyed. The jobs are very close to non-existent because the buildings and everything that were there were destroyed as well. So now there's no jobs for anybody to go back to. Once we showed up, there you can see the photographs that are scrolling across. The impact that our town had upon this small community is amazing. And I meant to bring a card that a little kid had wrote and sent back. But basically it said, essentially, God bless you angels, for helping us in our time of need. And when we get stuff like that, it's a blessing to us. But I think what's more important here is to note the heart that this town has and the way they gave. And again, we were just very fortunate to be the ambassadors to represent you guys when we went down there.
All I can say is hats off to you. Did a good job. Okay, next we have a proclamation. I will read this. This is a proclamation for November 4th, 2017, Arbor Day in the town of Black Mountain. Whereas in 1872, Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And whereas this day, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas trees in the town of Black Mountain increase property values and enhance the economic vitality of business areas and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they're planted, are a sense of joy and spiritual renewal Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor C. Michael Sullivan, the Board of Aldermen of the Town of Black Mountain, proclaim November 4th, 2017 as Arbor Day in the Town of Black Mountain, and the witness thereof on this, the 5th day of October 2017. Okay, next we come up to citizens' comments. We have one lady, Teresa Watson, that has signed up to speak.
I'm Teresa Watson, 5 Watson Road, Swannanoa. I attended the Coffee with a Cop yesterday. My goal in going was to make sure that the town provides the support needed by officers for their mental and emotional health. When I asked what the needs were of the police department, I was shocked at the chief's answer. Radios, vehicles, vests, rifles, and helmets. I stood there listening in disbelief, but as the day wore on, my disbelief turned to outrage. I don't have time to deal with vehicles and vests tonight, but I am going to deal with the radios. Are you aware that the Black Mountain Police Department can't talk to the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, the Black Mountain Fire Department, or the EMS? Half the time they can't even talk to each other. Imagine that. In a small town, your officers' communication equipment is so poor they can't talk to each other across the town. Are you aware that recently an officer was involved in a fight and he couldn't call for backup using his emergency button on his radio because it doesn't work? As a matter of fact, none of the emergency buttons on radios work. Are you aware that the Black Mountain Police Department is actively looking to apply for grants to get the radios they need? I guess the biggest question is not whether you're aware, because some of you are, but why haven't you done anything? You can finance new fire trucks. You can finance new golf carts. You can waste over $200,000 digging around in Lake Tomahawk, but you can't provide basic safety equipment for your officers. I beg to differ, because I think you can. They are sworn to serve and protect. They put their lives on the line every day. The responsibility for the safety of this town and its citizens rests with the police department. Listen to me carefully. The responsibility for the safety of the Black Mountain police officers lies in this room. Let me show you a picture. This is Officer Ian Ammons and his wife April. In just a few days, they're going to celebrate their first wedding anniversary. Which one of you is going to look my daughter in the eye and tell her that Ian is not coming home tonight or ever because you neglected to provide him with the very best safety equipment money can buy to do his job? At last month's meeting, the hot button topic was the parking crisis in this town. I guess that's the big issue of this election cycle. And then there's the talk of construction of a parking deck that's going to cost in the neighborhood of $1.7 million. Really? In the light of the lack of the equipment the police department has, what kind of fiscal irresponsibility is that? The police department needs $70,000 today to update their radios. So let me tell you what I'd like to see happen. When you come to work in the morning, Dean, I'd like to see you throw up in the town coffers and get started finding that $70,000.
Thank you, Teresa. 3 minutes. Thank you. All right. Now Matt.
You got a report from Jimmy Matthews, Public Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. This is Public Works Annual Report for Streets and Parks for 2016. It was a very busy year, and I apologize if I can't remember everything we've done, so I sort of try to touch on the highlights of everything. And so to get it started on the Montreat Road sidewalk, phases 1 through 5, we're on the last year's phase of that project, and everybody's real excited about it and has agreed to give us easements, but we're still lacking 2, and I think one's supposed to go sign tomorrow, and the other one has agreed to sign, but he's not yet went. With that being said, that will complete the Montreat Road sidewalk up to the last piece of property on the other side of Flat Creek Road, which it'll still leave the Montreat property to Rainbow Terrace, but with reaching out to that town manager, and he had been in touch with Matt about there's still some ongoing, they're in the process of purchasing that property, so it's not been closed on yet, so you really can't get an easement. So there's still details to be worked out about that, and some other news. Before I come to this meeting, I actually had reached out to another property owner that we didn't get to do last year, and she has agreed to give us an easement now. So that's been worked out, so we can complete that section that didn't get built. But because I just found that out just a few hours ago, I'm going to have to go back to the planning board with Dean and Matt and see what we can do about getting it built. But she has agreed to comply to that easement, so that's good news. So that'll finish that up, and I'm very proud of that because that's been 5 years going, and it'll be complete. Sidewalk replacement and repair. For 2016, we budgeted $20,000. Basically what that money does is go around and replace damaged or broken sidewalk to be replaced around town. We had spent that and got that done. Our paving and patching, the department alone put out 41.4 tons of asphalt ourselves in patching. We budgeted $100,000 and done our contract paving work on several roads around town that we budget for every year. Street striping, we've got $20,000 budgeted this year. The last time we done street striping, we done 38 roads with approximately $15,000. So I hope there's been a price increase since then, so I don't really know the number of roads we'll get, but I hope we can get at least that amount of roads with the extra $5,000. So culvert installation. We put out about 80 sticks in the past 4.5 years, which is equivalent to 1,582 square feet around town. What we do in that instance, and I know we don't see a lot of them now, but I did see one the other day on Portman Villa. Years ago, people used to use old hot water heaters, and they would sleeve them together, and that's what they use for a culvert. Of course, now they don't work, or they're crushed, so we try to replace them, but we partner with the homeowner. If they will buy the material and the pipe, then we'll take care of the labor and the installation, and that's worked out really well. And so we've got 80 sticks of culvert replaced. That's not to include what we've worked with DOT, and like what they're replacing on 70 or up at the golf course or different places around town. So we still try to fix them failing culverts as we come across them, and work with everybody involved. On stormwater GIS, our culvert system, for the most part, Sean, our GIS guy, has worked with John Beck at Land of Sky, and they've done a really good job, and they've got all of our culverts and conveyance systems mapped out. It is now on the map with our water GIS. For our purposes, we can pull both, but we also have a separate GIS that just has the stormwater on it for engineering purposes and things like that. So as we find and replace and get new information, we're constantly updating that, just like our water system. Stormwater ditching, that's pretty routine stuff every year that we do. Good examples, if you've seen down at the railroad tracks here this past week, that was in some dire need of being ditched. We got that completed, got everything out of there, and that's part of an effort with meeting with DOT about a month ago, and to try to get some of the stormwater downtown fixed and repaired. And speaking with engineers, they had told me and Matt that they would put the project on for next year, that they fund for one big project a year, if you've been by CVS, you'll see the project that was funded for this year. So at least we're on there for next year. We cross our fingers that'll happen, but we wanted to do our part and be ahead of the game for when that happens. So we went ahead and ditched that down through there to keep that water from backing up in the system. But we've done several ditches around town through the year. Snow removal. We had one good snow last year. I'm very proud of how that went. We got a lot of compliments out of our snow removal and the plan that we had put together. I hope none of you bought sled, because I'm really praying hard that we don't get none. But if we do, we're prepared, so that's a good thing. And speaking of snow removal, try to give you tonnage on what we spend on salt and sand. But this year, we were very fortunate, and thanks to Asheville, I really give them kudos. They had a bunch that they had to get rid of for a new shipment. So they told us, said, we'll leave you a backhoe. If you'll come and get it, it's free. So we restocked our whole salt and sand bin for nothing at no cost. So big thanks to them. Hemlock inoculation. We got about 824 trees around town that we do every year on a 3-year cycle. We actually started them this week. We will be doing about 352 trees this year. We done 121 last year. And that's a good thing. We've been doing them for several years now. So we got one guy on that. So if you see him out on one of the gators with a tank in the back, that's what he's doing. So he'll be on the edge of the road treating hemlocks, and like I say, it's a 3-year cycle for them trees. So, and I will throw this out there because I know a lot of questions come up about honeybees and stuff like that. That's the whole purpose of. There's different ways you can treat these trees. So if anybody asks you, or this will not hurt the honeybees as long as it's injected in the ground. We don't spray the tree, so no honeybees will be affected by this, and which is a good thing also. On our parks, projects, and maintenance, I just want to touch on some highlighted stuff that we done last year. I know we done a lot of stuff in parks this year, a lot because of the Montessori school, and a lot of stuff we done. We at Carver, you know, the guys, they put down way over 5,000 square foot of flooring through that whole building. I think, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, there's only a few rooms that hadn't been done at this point, and maybe the hallway. Remulched the playgrounds. I know that don't sound like much, but for state purposes, it has to be a certain type of mulch. Everything has to be measured to certain heights. So there's a lot more goes into it than just doing flower beds. Put together swing sets, and we restriped the parking lots. We put together a lot of cabinets and installed stuff for the school up there and for Casey. And Lakeview and Tomahawk, refloored the kitchen, redone the flower beds on the dam. We restriped them parking lots. And of course, if you see the new picnic tables inside the pavilion over there, we had to assemble all of them and get them put out. But we're very thankful that them's there because they were in dire need of some new ones. And community garden, we built 3 new compost bins. We built new monarch butterfly beds. We built 3 of them, and we replaced the irrigation pump for the watering system over there. Gray Eagle, we re-roofed the back storage room on the back, put a new roof on it. Cragmont Courts, we crack sealed them and restriped them last year. The greenways, it's really a lot of tree removals just from storms, and we try to take a look when we go through there and empty trash and stuff and make sure if there's any dead trees, we try to remove them just for safety purposes of people walking and jogging through there. And of course your typical mowing and general maintenance. Town Square, you know, we put the bricks in as people order them, and your general maintenance there. And same thing for Swanwell Valley Museum, we do the bricks. We rebuilt a retaining wall behind there. Put the big rocks out behind there for their parking lot, put the new curb stops out, restriped it for them. They shipped the rocks in, we placed them, and of course, you remember when we built the chimney swift houses, that was in 16 too, so we'd done that. And I didn't put the golf course on here, but just to add that, we restriped that too, paved some places on the cart paths. DOT put some culverts in under the cart paths on one of the roads that joins the golf course to get some of the water channeled to where it needs to go, and we removed some trees, and we relocated the water line for the stream restoration when that happened, and lowered it below the creek. So on total work orders, as a trend, you can see that it's went down a little bit through the years, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I want to explain a little bit of why, because you're going to see it's going to level off, but it's going to fluctuate, and here's why. Years ago, for staff reasons, we have two types of work order systems. You got one that's called in from the public, which is generated by Laurel, and then we have one at the end of the day that we generate ourselves, which we call a manual work order. Years ago on the manual work order, when we come up with this system, it documented man hours. So that means every person that worked in public works had to turn in a work order. That's different now. Now when the guys go out in a group, let's just say you send 2 guys out to mow, that's 1 work order. They're both on the same work order at the end of the day. If you send 4 guys out on a job, instead of being 4 work orders, that's 1 work order now. So we're trying to get it, me and Laurel and the supervisors have worked to try to get this thing leveled out. But keep in mind, it's also going to be based on how many water work orders did we do and projects, and it's also based on weather. If you have a dry year and we don't do as much mowing, that cuts back on work orders and things of that nature. So when I looked at this, I thought, wow, because we're busier than we have ever been. But you see that go down. So I'm hoping that'll level off. And now that we've got rid of the man hours and really got down to the work orders, I'll be interested to see what the next 3 years look like. So, but that's why that's like that. But out of that 2,103 work orders, and I'm proud of this, only 81 work orders was called in by the public. The rest was generated in-house. So I'm very proud of the guys and the proactive part of it. So we've done this chart just to sort of break it down and show you in percentages. In our work order system, again, when the work orders go to Laurel, they are coded for certain areas. Some stuff ain't coded because of the type of work order it is. It just goes into miscellaneous. And it broke down, if you see, like the miscellaneous on this, the 12%, that could be anything from Christmas decorations to putting flags out for the 4th of July to picking dead animals up out of the road or debris in the road. There's no work order code for that, so it goes into miscellaneous. The big part, the 57% over here of the work orders, if you go to the next slide, that whole chart right there is the 57% of where that 57% went. And just to explain a little bit about that, you can see it's broke down. The 57% is mainly parks, and then you got the public works facility over here, and that can be the 70 work orders. That can be rainy day. That can be maintenance to the building. That can be mowing at our building. That can be anything on a rainy day we do for maintenance. Town properties at the top, the 61, that can be like art stuff at the art center, town hall, the library, that type stuff. But anyway, that gives you a general idea of where that 57% of the work orders went out of the 2,106. Downtown restrooms, that's daily cleaning, that's maintenance on them, and things of that nature. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them. I will say, and this is just an added bonus, and I got this information last week, I know this winter that MSD is coming downtown, and they're going to be doing some refurbishing to their system. They're going to be replacing manholes. They're going to be doing what they call line bursting, line maintenance, and it is going to be on Cherry, Black Mountain, or Sutton, Cherry Street, Sutton, Broadway, Richardson, and South Ridgeway. So I have put a call into Darren Prosser. He sent me some blueprints, but I want to get further details of what they're going to be doing what's going to be tore up, because there's some things I'd like to piggyback on that with them, like a water line that needs to be replaced and things of that nature. But I'm sure as this goes forward, they will be getting in touch with everybody, and I will be in touch with them. But it's supposed to be sometime in January and February, and I know a lot of the works, some of it's supposed to be at night. So it'll be a good time to do it in the dead of winter, weather permitting, of course, is what he told me. But anyway, sort of gives you an idea of what we've done for the year. There's a lot of stuff on there that I could report on, but we would be here all night, and I know Angela don't want to do that. So anyway, that's sort of sums up what we've done for the year.
Got a question, a couple of questions. Number one, when you have these downtown restrooms, so I was under the impression that we had that, like Blue Ridge First Blue Ridge or whatever that was from Ridgecrest, that they were doing this, but we do all our restrooms now. We don't subcontract it out at all.
Right. The only thing we do with First now is the cemetery, the town cemetery. We took that other stuff back to try to save money.
Okay.
And
I knew we were taking back the mowing.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it, but I didn't realize that that's so.
Yeah.
So we're taking care of it.
Yeah, I have a guy that comes in very early in the morning and does like Town Square and Cherry Street and restocks, and then he leaves early in the evening to do the same thing before he goes home. That way it's done twice a day.
Very good. On the hemlocks, when the woolly adelgid first came in here, one of the arborists had come in and was talking about it. We're talking 18 years ago, back when I was on an alderman here, and saying then that this will be moving through like the gypsy moth did, coming down from Maine into New York and on down to us. And then it cycled out. And is this the case? Or had they started coming? Because I've noticed a couple of small hemlocks I've got, and I've started to notice they haven't been treated. But I kept noticing that the woolly adelgid seems to be heavier now this summer than it ever has been. Is that the case, Karen, or can you speak to that?
Well, I know when I talked to Andrew Wagner, which is one of the local arborists here, and asked if that would be an ongoing thing, he advised yes. But I can also tell you this, there's a new invasive critter called the emerald ash borer that is affecting hardwood trees, and they are in the process of trying to look at alternatives to treat that, and one of them is by some kind of wasp, which I think is, of course, like Asia. But they don't know yet what kind of adverse effects the wasp will have in this region. So we're fighting a new type of critter now, but as far as I know, he recommended to continue to treat for the woolly adelgid. So I mean, I can check into that.
If you would check and just see what the overall is there, are they going to be moving back up? Because that's what this arborist had said. It said they'll come through. Those trees that have survived are probably are naturally resistant, but if they're coming back again, I don't know. If you
I've got a real good connection with a guy with the State Forestry Service that's a real good contact. I can reach out to him and see what his thoughts is on it. He probably knows more than anybody, I'd say.
Well, and as I've said before to the public out here, this has been a program that is well worth all the money we've spent, because you try to take down one or two trees up in some power lines, and you're talking thousands of dollars just for a couple of trees, and we're treating almost 1,000 trees.
And just in material, we spend $1,000 a year to treat them as far as product. And that's not man hours or nothing, but we can usually do the treatment, 350 some trees, we can usually be done in a week, and the material costs about $1,000. So it's
Anybody else got any questions?
I do. Again, to clarify, the Sutton Stormwater, where you've been working down there, that's getting in preparation for what DOT is scheduled to do next year as far as our stormwater drain system there on Sutton.
Yes.
That empties into Sutton.
Yes. 3 years ago, I'd actually talked to DOT then. Chad Bandy was the engineer then. He, in turn, at that time said he had some funding for that project. Well, between then and getting the funding, he had actually took a new job with Asheville. So then we got another engineer. I can't remember his first name. His last name was Willis. And it's pretty much the same thing. He was getting us on board and going. Well, he got transferred that year, so there's 2 years went by. Well, now they got a new guy named Troy Wilson. And so we met on site down there for that, because anybody that's lived here any length of time knows that when that system backs up, it blows that manhole lid off in front of Henson's. Well, putting our heads together and trying to figure this thing out, he had told us because of funding, they only had enough funding for one big project a year. So hopefully we got them at the right time, and according to him, he has us on his list to do for next year. But what we needed to do, one of them was to clean that ditch out, because it hadn't been cleaned in a couple of years, and that's what we done, because we want to be ahead of the game. But also, I got to looking, and the parking lot behind Town Hardware, a lot of the material that comes out of that parking lot goes in that drain under Harry Hyder's building, comes out down there. So I'm working on right now, looking at a way to continue to let the water go where it needs to go, but try to keep the material out of that drain to keep it from clogging that ditch up sooner than what it should. But a lot of them trees that was in there was just trees that was not planted. They needed to go. So we redone the banks back, took it deeper than what it needed to be, and but hopefully they can get that thing replaced. Our part will be done, and hopefully that will be a good thing to get some of that water from out of that system.
All right, let's talk about the Montreat Road sidewalks. You're saying now that the last two easements, you're in the process of getting those?
I have been in contact with them people at least once a week for probably the past month. They are all on board. A lot of them have told us that they're going to sign, and but for whatever reason, because of work schedules or doctor's appointments, or they've not made it. I know one of the girls left me a message. She's supposed to go by Ron's tomorrow and sign, and that will leave one guy. And he has told us also that he would sign, but we have met with every one of them face to face except for that one guy. But we did talk to him by phone, and he said, yeah, it's not a problem, but we just got to get him there. And
well, we're finishing Montreat Road sidewalk this budget year, correct?
Correct. And we can completely finish it if we can get the Golston property done also.
All right. Our plans for this town is where?
From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I know we're in the process of getting surveys, which is already being done for the sidewalk out Highway 9.
That's correct. That's what we've been on schedule to do for the last couple of years, knowing that as soon as we finish Montreat, then we were going to start out number 9. So nothing has changed on that. We're still on schedule to start with that next year.
That's right.
Actually,
we're in the design process for that now and the surveying.
And trying to get some budget numbers together of what the cost is going to be. That way we'll know if we have to do it like Montreat Road and break it into phases, or if we can just do it all in one time, because we don't really know the linear footage yet.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, Matt, consent agenda.
On your consent agenda, you've got the adoption of minutes from September. You've got appointments for our new planning director, Jessica Trotman, to represent us on the MPO Technical Coordinating Committee and as a member of the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium. And you have the acceptance of Locust Street as a publicly maintained street. Those are your consent agenda items.
Okay, do I hear a motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, unanimous.
One correction on it. I think Angie has me down as being present, but I think I was absent last month. I know you're so used to seeing it here.
We'll amend these minutes.
Okay. Might have been my evil twin.
All right. Nobody signed up for any more citizen comment, no unfinished business. And we got the new business.
Yes, under new business, as you added at the agenda session earlier tonight, the French Broad River MPO is currently accepting calls for projects, and one of the calls for projects this year is that they're allowing is parking and circulation studies. that's an eligible project, similar to the way we've done bike plans in the past and pedestrian plans. The total project is anticipated to cost $35,000. We would be responsible for 20% of that. So there's a resolution here saying that we should that the board is in favor of applying for that funding to take a look at parking and circulation issues for the downtown. That's due by October 25th of 2017. It wouldn't be funded until next year, but we'd like to move that project forward, please.
I think it's a worthwhile project there. Working with the Blue Ribbon Committee, I think we could address the parking and congestion. Let the citizens help us out. Do I hear a motion?
Motion. Move.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right. No public hearing. Communications.
I have nothing for the board this week.
I don't have anything for the board.
All right. Communication from the Board of Aldermen.
Mayor, I'll just pick up on the discussion on the solid waste contract. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you can pass one to Fred. Here, just pass them on down. I think there might be some extras, but there would be one for Fred. So what you have, and unfortunately I don't have enough to hand out to the public, but what you have is the entire, you don't really need it, but you have the entire contract that Matt signed. That's the last section. Then you have just what the mayor was reading from, the motion, the minutes from our August 8th meeting. In front of that, you have the pages from the proposal that Waste Pro presented at that August 8th meeting. There are 3 proposals, and we were looking at the base service proposal. So, if you'll turn to the second page in the handout, that is the basic service proposal that we were discussing. It was presented to us. That's what we were focusing on. And as the mayor said in the discussion that evening, when we were with the Waste Pro people here, it came, and I'll say this for the public so they can know what we're looking at. This proposal comes in sections. It says collection prices, and then it has various, these are per household prices. Then it has transportation prices, then it has disposal prices, and then it has total cost. So you can, and then this is a 4-year proposal. So the proposal was 1506. This was what was presented by Waste Pro for year 1. Year 2 was, it increases cost of living sort of thing, or just some adjustments in their prices for the proposal. 15.44, 15.82, 16.21. That's per household. That included. It came out in the discussion. What we call the landfill costs, the tipping fees at the landfill, and so forth. For all the prior years in our contract, the town had paid those separately. We had a contract with Republic, right? That's the prior contractor. We had the contract. They of course pick up all the solid waste and so forth and the recycling, but then we paid, the town had the disbursement was made, right, Dean, from your, just paid the landfill costs separately. It was not part of the contract. So that's, Waste Pro presented it in that fashion, and in the discussion, which the mayor led, it came to the attention that they had included disposal fees and the landfill fees in there, which they didn't need to be in there. Dean pays for them separately. So we backed those out, and in backing those out, and you can see on page 2 of my handout, you come to a revised contract cost of $11.46 for year 1, $12.49 for year 2, $12.8 for year 3, and $13.11 for year 4, and those would be the revised contract prices. If you look, and Matt will have to, they may not be able to do it this meeting, but can follow up and explain. But if you look at section 21 of the contract that Matt signed, the per household cost, 1146 year one, which agrees to, this is my worksheet, by the way, that I prepared, but 1140, year one agrees. Year two, as you can see, is less than my worksheet, just backing it out. And Matt, you can explain that maybe at our next meeting or so. If you can explain it now. Okay, well, let me finish up and you can explain. So you can see the revised contract cost as you back out the numbers, 1146, 1249, 1280, 1311. Matt's not, the year one is exactly the same in the contract that Matt signed. Year two, year three, and year four are less. And so Matt's going to help us understand that just in a moment. But then back to the motion that the mayor was mentioning earlier, I think he's correct. It's probably not worded correctly, in my opinion, because we took the contract, the proposal that Waste Pro offered. My motion was, I'd have to go back and listen to it, but the intention of my motion was to accept their proposal less the landfill cost. That's simply what my understanding of the motion I was making was. And so I think it might be appropriate if the board feels this way, we can address that anyway in the minutes of this meeting or something. But that, I think, is to me the story behind the discussion, behind the contract, behind the proposal that Waste Pro offered to us, the adjustments we made, which were kind of on the fly, frankly, at that meeting. We probably should have stopped and gone to the next meeting. It might have been a little clearer and easier for everybody to follow. But that's the gist of it. I think it's laid out fairly well. Those are, I mean, I did a worksheet, but that's really just from the Waste Pro's presentation. So, Matt, what's the difference in why is the number, if we back out the disposal fees from, or the landfill fees from Waste Pro per year, why is that a little
It's
less?
lower because
a little more than your numbers.
well, it would have been more than the numbers that we ended up signing, because the 1146 was lower than the number that when you first backed out the disposal fees from the landfill, because we were doing it, and that is, like you said, it was done on the fly. Probably a better approach would have been, an approach that we would take in the future, is that if numbers aren't correct when somebody's standing up here, we send them back and say, bring us correct numbers and we'll look at it the next one. But we didn't do that. We tried to work it out in a public meeting openly. Those numbers came back. So when I went to Waste Pro and said, these are the numbers, they said that, if you back the disposal fee, it's not 1146. And I said, well, that was the motion, so I got to start with 1146. I said, we can work it out for the future years with the disposal fee, but I can't but what we did was convince them that, hey, you can't go from 1146 to 1249. That's nearly a 10% increase. So let's take the increases that you had in your proposal, the 3 to 4% increase. We'll use that as our sliding scale, and we'll move up. And that's what we did. And so we didn't end up ultimately backing numbers out because we knew what the numbers were. So then we just took it on a percentage scale and went up. So there is nothing to tie the numbers back to.
There actually is. It's the base year.
Well, the base year to use numbers that slide up with that scale. But even then, I think we made some adjustments in there because they to move it up, but to make it a little more gradual of an increase. But in my opinion, it worked to the town's and the taxpayers' benefit.
I think
and
so.
So it seemed it still held in line with what the motion was, which is they had made a proposal that goes up every year, and we started with a different number, and I signed a contract that went up with a proposal that was different every year.
Well, the motion, if it were going to be corrected, may say 1146 beginning in year one as adjusted, or some such thing. We can amend that at a future meeting if we want to, and get the proper wording in there, give you time to think about it. But I do think it's relatively straightforward. It's the Waste Pro numbers less the disposal fees, and then you had the added
And that's what we did-
convoluted
and that's what we
business
did
of
that
the
night. And
base
so-
thing.
Yes, so the numbers did change, and they don't tie back exactly to an actual number, but that was the principle was, you take out, they should not have had disposal costs for the landfill in there, and they did, we took those out, but that dropped the number down, and so we changed the numbers as we moved forward. The numbers still work, it's still a contract, and if you compare it, frankly, to Republic's proposal, which was $25 a household, it was gonna be a number that we were able to absorb, where the continuing contract with the company that we had was not a number that we would have had a harder time absorbing that number.
Right. I think the confusion with that was that Waste Pro offered a number that was pretty close to Republic's, but they included the landfill cost.
That's right, and so when you compare the numbers, it did, and like I said, at the next time we negotiate a solid waste contract or other contracts, if people want to stand here at the table and say, hey, the numbers aren't exactly right, we should just say, go back, let's find the right numbers, let's talk about this and bring it back, and that's all that we would do in the future, and I think that's a better approach, an approach that we'll carry out from now on.
But that really wasn't the way that it was discussed that night. You talk about disposal fees and landfill tipping fees. That tipping fees are one separate thing. That does not have anything to do with any of this recycling or the white goods and as they said, and as I was able to point out to them, they make money off of our recycling. They actually get paid money off of recycling. And this is per Kirby executives that I went to see. So they get paid. Now it's a commodity, so that as the commodities prices go up and down. And so this was not done off of the fly. This was done to make sure that they went ahead and reduced these and got these disposal fees out of there. They just simply put them in there. They acknowledged that there was no tipping fee that they had to pay. These are just fees that they put in. And there's nothing on the tape that they say that this disposal fee for garbage was a landfill fee.
I'm kind of not agreeing with you there. I'm kind of not agreeing with you there.
Well, you have to listen to the tape. And what I'm going to do is get a transcript of that so that you will go, because I've got a copy of the tape.
Ask Dean. Dean, let me ask you something.
Well, I can ask Dean.
Yeah, I would like to ask Dean. I had the floor, didn't I?
No, you didn't have the floor.
Well, it's Alderman comment. It's Alderman comment.
We're talking.
Great, but I can ask Dean a
Could you
question.
control down? Keep your voice down.
I can ask Dean a question.
You can, but just control your voice.
I'm cool. I'm cool.
Okay.
I'm cool.
You don't sound cool.
I'm cool. Dean, explain to me how you disperse funds to pay for the landfill cost.
Well, we've
In prior
always
years,
historically written two different checks out. One to whoever's picking up the garbage, and then we pay ever since I've worked here, we pay about $12,000 a month to Buncombe County landfill for the tipping, for the disposal or the tipping, fee, whatever you want to call it. And we've always paid the garbage collector, whether it's Republic or Waste Pro, for driving around and picking up the garbage.
Separately.
Yeah, separately.
and this contract had it together.
No,
Before it was
no,
pulled
this
out.
contract did not have it together.
Well, Dean said it did.
No, he didn't. No, he did not.
He just shook his head.
He just said that we pay the tipping fees to the county.
He just shook his head.
And then he went ahead and
Together.
said that we pay Republic and Waste Pro a separate thing.
Yeah, and the quote, my belief is the quote that Waste Pro gave us had both of those numbers in the 1506.
And that's what they reduced back. And like I said, I think that the numbers still favor the town over what Republic was going to charge us. And so it's still a contract.
Well,
that is
Republic was
beneficial
going to charge $25.
Right. So, and that was our other bid.
So the thing is that also too, another point to bring up here is the fact that Republic took the garbage to the landfill. Now Waste Pro takes it to the transfer station. And what's happening is that the checks that you're writing have been, they're more because when you take something to the transfer station, you are charged a premium, $4 a ton. And so ever since we started last October, we've been paying almost $1,000 a month more to the county for the tipping fees because we're going to the, because they're going to the transfer station. That's a fee right there that we're basically, town's losing $1,000 a
Well,
month.
I'd have to look into the details of that tipping charge to see what, it's easy for me to see what are they charging us per ton.
I've got the copies of that, of what the county has charged us on that.
Yeah.
And so basically, when you listen to the tape, there's nothing in the tape that says that we included the tipping fees in our price. Nothing. There's nothing in there about that. And so I will have a transcript done up from the tape, and I will distribute it out to the board members, and you will see then that there's nothing in there about that.
That'd be great.
And also, too, the way I understand it here, how this could have been improved, because we didn't say we're going ahead and approving. You didn't make a motion to approve this contract, as it says. You made a motion for 1146 for 4 years. That's what you made.
As I said in my comments earlier, I think the motion is misleading. What I
Well,
intended.
it doesn't matter whether it's misleading or not. It was the motion that y'all parsed off.
No, I think you're interrupting me now.
Yeah,
You're not allowing me to speak.
that's what the motion
So,
was.
I said earlier that I think the motion, the minutes don't reflect my intention, which was to adopt what Waste Pro presented, less disposal fees.
Yeah, well, that's not what the motion says, and that's what this
Well,
board passed.
I admit that. I think we need to
And
change
so
it.
there again, that's what this board needs to do, is to address this issue. And I would like to see if they would address the issue on the extra charges that were being charged at the transfer station. That's $1,000 a month that we're just giving away. But there shouldn't be any reason why we're paying that.
Okay, we can look into
I
those
mean, I asked
charges.
you
The
that
contract is-
4 or 5 months ago to tell me why we're doing that and everything, and you've yet to come back with any kind of answer to me.
Let me just interject one thing here. $1,000 a month, we need to find out what the story is. But what the citizens need to understand and remember is we got rid of the garbage tax 6 years ago, and to date, that's saved this town taxpayers $1,800,000. Yes, we need to be concerned about the $1,000 a month, but look at the big number of what the town citizens have been saved by us getting this board. Mike was part of it, Maggie, that we got rid of the garbage tax and it saved $1,800,000. To me, that's, as the old saying goes, straining a gnat and swallowing a camel. That's what we need to be thinking about, be thankful for as far as these taxpayers.
Anybody else want to say anything? If not, meeting adjourned.